Well, well. Hello, good evening, everyone. Treks and Trekkers, nerdy up north aficionados. It's me, Michael, your host of Star Trekkin with Nerdy Up North, and I'm joined by my lovely host, Graeme. Hello, Graeme.
Your beautiful co-host, Graeme.
Stunning,
look at it. I've waxed my head and everything. I'm like proper gorge, like. I don't know. I'm literally just looking over at these executor I have at the side, and I'm like, oh, they must be family.
But yeah, good evening, everyone. Welcome to episode 3 of Star Trekking with Nerdy Up North. We are live this week because we thought we'd be brave enough and do it all live and unrehearsed.
We'll do it live.
We can't fix this in post. But yes, welcome along to everyone. Thank you so much for watching. We will be reviewing episode 3 of Star Trek Picard season 3, which is adequately titled 17 Seconds. But before we get into that, we do have a little bit of Trek news, which broke late last night from Hollywood, and I'm keen to discuss it with Graeme. Star Trek Discovery will be ending with season 5, and they've put the season back to 2024. Now, what do you think of this, Graeme?
Well, it's a shame because obviously, like I've said before, I'm not a fan of Discovery. Like, it's not really what I enjoy as Trek. But the fact is, there is such a massive fan base for it that it's a real shame because there's so many people that are actually really upset about it. But it's also the idea of it seems a bit of a crap one. Like, it seems a bit of a slap in the face, like we had with Enterprise, like we had with maybe Voyager. Technically, I think Voyager technically got the full run, but then still tripped on the ending. I think
they had their 7-year, but the ending could have been wrapped up a bit better.
Yeah, well, whereas like DS9, they were like, let's just make the ending the whole season. And so it was like very, very well sort of choreographed. But with this one, it's like, I heard people saying that most of season 5 is filmed. So is it just going to have a kind of... Yeah, that's it. Like, is it just going to have a one episode, like, oh, and they saved the universe. Oh, that's right enough.
It's a bit puzzling. Yeah, so season 5, from what I've been told from insiders, was yet again another dramatic tonal shift. for Star Trek Discovery. I think we've had about 3 now.
That's a lot of tones.
So we obviously had the tone for season 1 and 2, then we had a different tone in season 3, a different tone for season 4, and then a different tone for season 5.
That one where it was all animated and every episode was a musical. Yeah, that one.
Oh, yes, of course, yes. Wasn't that Buffy? Anyway.
I think every season gets one. Every show gets one. Every show.
So for this one, this was filmed last year. They wrapped principal photography last year, and it was in post-production. The problem is that Paramount Plus, and obviously Paramount Pictures and the owners behind it, are looking to save money and help Paramount Plus, which is their version of Netflix, make money this year. And there has been talks of obviously...
What a novel idea.
I know, yeah. Well, a lot of streaming services...
Hang on, guys. Let's make money.
Well, a lot of streaming services currently don't make money. So Disney Plus is making a huge loss at the moment. So there's this big drive now from Wall Street for these streaming services to start making money. And Paramount has made no secret of, we're going to have to cut areas, and we're going to have to try and make some profit off this platform. And everyone thought, well, what does that mean for Star Trek? And this is what was strange, because within a week, everyone was like, Disco will get cancelled. And then yesterday, Disco is ending. Now, they've pushed it back from its airing date of this year to 2024, which leads me to believe the news came after everything filmed, and they've gone, right, this is what's going to happen. Shall we film a couple of extra more episodes?
Yeah.
Wrap it up. Because Discovery, and I don't know if you've ever seen this, there was a little mini-series called Short Treks. And one of them was called Calypso, which was set in the 32nd century. Now, this was done in season 1, after season 1, and it was set in the 32nd century where Discovery had been abandoned. And everyone's like, right, are they going to tie it up with this little shot, or are they going to do something different? But I think this has come to a blow. They've already filmed it. It's been announced, and now they're going to have to go back, film a couple of more episodes to wrap it up. But I think...
At least they're doing that, though. I think, yes. I think the whole... Because obviously my fear is that it's going to be... remember that episode of The Simpsons where Homer creates a new character for Itchy and Scratchy, and then literally just says, "Oh, he went back to his home planet," and it's like just like stuck on. He flies off. Me now. If Discovery ends with that, he'd just be like, "Oh, okay," But no, I think it's good that they are giving it extra couple of episodes. At least that's not like the slap in the face that kind of Enterprise had, because that wasn't a final episode. That was they're on the set and they're like, "Okay, can we get Riker in?"
I'm still hoping. Even though it's been damn near 20 years, I'm still hoping for a season 5 of Enterprise, or a little mini anthology series that just neatly wraps it up into a little bow, and I'd be happy.
Just while Scott Bakula, we still want to see him with his top off, because if we're going to give that another 5 or 10 years, I think the milk's going to sour. It's limited for Scott Bakula, I think.
But I agree with you. It is a shame. Discovery, I loved the first 2 series. It had potential. The writing was never really there. They tried. There has been a lot of tonal shifts, but it was always a case of Star Trek is always about an ensemble crew. They had a terrific ensemble crew that they've never, ever utilized or delved into. Yeah. And that's a shame.
It had so many characters with potential, and then even in season 1 and 2, it's like, oh, but Michael Burnham, and you're like, this has never been what Trek is. Like, Trek has always been like, oh, here's Captain Picard, but forget about him. This episode's about Troy, or in a weird way, because it'd be like, it's Troy. Oh, she's pregnant. Oh, she's like in danger. Oh, and you're like, could we not have an episode about Troy where it's just like, I don't know, Troy being happy? That'd be a great one, But But no, it is a shame, but that's what I mean about like it not fitting the tone of Star Trek. But it's such a shame because there are people that really enjoyed it, and it's their gateway into Trek. So especially in the LGBT community. There's so many Discovery fans because it's literally made them go, oh, I like Star Trek, and I thought this was this gatekeep thing that I wasn't able to get, like allowed in, and now they're just like, oh, there's gay characters, oh, there's this, and then obviously now they're watching like DS9 and being like, oh wait, Dax is kind of trans. It's one of those, like, you could argue it, but however, there are actual trans characters now, so that's good.
Let's not forget, and this is a message to all the haters of Star Trek Discovery, let us not forget, without Star Trek Discovery, you would not have Strange New Worlds, Lower Decks, Prodigy, Picard, and everything else that is coming from. So, if anything, thank Discovery for opening it to new fans, bringing in new fans, making Trek big again. So I think we should leave it on. Thank you, Star Trek Discovery. Here's to season 5. It was a good run.
Yeah. No, I think that's it. So it's the sort of, I think it's a shame that it's going, because I think the wonderful thing is, when something comes out and something, something that you don't like, and you're like, that's cool, we put that over here. We don't hate it, we don't dislike it, we don't spend our days arguing about it on the internet. We just go, cool, that's a thing I'm not interested in. Look at this other thing I'm interested in. It's better to be sort of like positive about something rather than like focus on being negative about something.
Well,
but I'm determined to get through Discovery, even though I keep giving up on season 2. I keep going like, okay, I'll watch another episode. I'll watch DS9 again. I'll go back to TNG,
Well, speaking of positives, let's get in to this week's episode of Star Trek Picard, episode 3, titled 17 Seconds. And oh my gosh, what an episode. And we are going to go through all through the episode, as we do every week. And we are going to discuss what happened, what we feel, anything good, anything bad. So let's get right into it, shall we? So
can we make some stuff up just to catch people out? Like,
those eagle-eyed viewers.
Remember when that bit happened?
It was all
with the giant space egg.
Yes, it was all the giant space egg's fault. It was Howard the Duck. That's the main.
That's exactly what happened in this episode.
It was all.
So that's episode over. Thanks everyone for watching.
So. The episode opens. Obviously, we have the lovely recap, and then the episode opens with the Titan just running for its life. This, wow, it's just, the Titan's running for its life. It's made a decision to run. It's going straight through the nebula. For me, straight away, Wrath of Khan. Best of Both Worlds, the Strange New World episode Against the Gorn, another Nebula episode where it's a dangerous cat and mouse chase. We then see Beverly and Jack going back to sickbay.
Beverly gets some lines, which is good.
She gets
lines. To speak in this episode, so
she gets some lines, but there was an interesting little bit in this first scene where Jack leans Beverly against the bio bed, and that the yellow shirt goes, "This is all your fault." And Jack goes to wallop him one, and Beverly holds him back, and she goes, "We'll need them later." And I'm like, what do you mean you'll need them later? Very cryptic little line that was easily missed, but. So we get that little scene there, and then we have a little flashback to before. I love the fact that the showrunners are doing like these little flashbacks, but they're not giving specific times or anything like that. They're just saying like 2 weeks ago, before. And we go back to...
I love the fact of the way they do flashbacks is they play some music that's like from the 60s or 70s or 80s or whatever, and you're like, is that the past? Is that how you represent the past? Because they've done it in every episode so far, that they're like, here's a pseudo-modern song, it's and I'm just like, is that how you do it? Like, how if a dream sequence, you make it sort of like wobbly and blurry and stuff. It's like, this one is like, okay, play a rock song from a couple of years ago. That means it's in the past now.
Guinan is such a soft rock aficionado, I think, because every time we go to 10 Forward in LA, there's always some sort of soft rock. And she was there during the time of Mark Twain. Why is there no 20s music, 20s dance music or
I
a bit of
totally
polka.
forgot about that. I totally forgot about the random Mark Twain, like, well, it's a double episode, isn't it? And you just go like,
It's a
why is
two-party,
he
yeah.
here? It's weird. And as a kid, I thought it was Einstein because I didn't know who Mark Twain was when I
Oh
was
my
a
God,
kid.
you were right. Yeah,
And I just
totally
went,
looks
why is
like
Einstein
Einstein.
in this? Why is he American? I was like, oh, what the hell? And then it's like, oh, that's Mark Twain. He's really, really famous. Okay.
But this scene, this one, I want your opinion on this. So it says before it's Picard and Riker in 10 forward in LA, and they are both de-aged to look like how they looked in Nemesis, or slightly just after Nemesis. Now, de-aging technology is a bit polarizing for me. It can either be done well, or it could be done where it's like
X-Men 3.
X-Men 3, and it's
Yeah.
like, I'm a bit divided with this scene. I think Riker was de-aged okay. Picard just looked like they just sandpapered his face.
That's what they did. No, they did. Patrick Stewart got they were just like, hey, Patrick Stewart,
Sander to the yeah. It was.
But
I mean, yeah.
The thing is, though, I didn't really notice on Riker. Like, I think it was suitably done on Riker, and the setting was quite good because obviously it's it was like dimly lit and stuff, so you kind of get away with it. It was on Picard that I very much noticed it. I was just like, oh, they've de-aged him. Did they need to? But I think it worked. It's the idea of it's kind of, I don't know, maybe it's me being oddly optimistic, but when all special effects are going to look shit in 10 years anyway, they're just kind of jumping the gap, really. They're just kind of broaching it first, being like, no,
Yeah.
when it came out, it looked shit. So
it's obviously it's set, and I did a bit of math. So this is when Thaddeus, who is Riker's firstborn, his son, is
that's
born.
the weirdest way of saying it.
Firstborn.
Riker's the firstborn of Riker.
The first lineage of the Riker. So this is 2381. So this is a year after Nemesis. Thaddeus has been born, and they are celebrating the birth of Thaddeus Riker, and cheers and everything like that. And Riker goes on this little speech where he's like, Picard goes, I heard it was touch and go. And Riker says, yeah. And he said,
was that the conception?
Yeah.
Well, Picard would know a lot about that following what we learned last week.
Will. I mean, shout out to Dave Hope in the Nerdy Up North community that's done a Riker meme a day for the last, I think it's 90 odd days. Christ. And it's just Riker boning random people across the galaxy.
But I just like the fact that obviously Thaddeus was born out over like Riker like straddling Troy like a chair. Just sort of like a leg over maneuver. The back of it.
Yeah. But he says, like, Picard said he was a bit touch and go, and said, the doctor said he was a difficult birth, and he said those 7, because he said from leaving the bridge and entering sick bay, that turbo lift, it was 17 seconds, and it was the longest 17 seconds of his life.
Yeah.
But his son was born, and then we get
hold on. I felt this was really important because in terms of Trek lore, like one of the things that is the most plot device-esque and the most sort of unbelievable is just how they get around the ship. Like, for instance, even in the last episode where it was the idea of, oh, you've got an hour, and then it's like Picard manages to get across an entire starship to this place, then he's like, I have 6 minutes left, and then he's somehow in the brig a minute later being like, I've only got 5 minutes left, and it's like, not specific, but it's interesting to see, like, to actually get some time on how quick turbo lifts are, because obviously they don't seem to be when people are in them, but you're assuming that they're actually zooming through kind of thing, especially in like DS9 where you're just going like, that seems pretty slow, and it's managed to go like across the entire station. But I think this whole thing was beautiful. Like, I think this whole scene between them, where it's kind of showing how the relationship, it's believable, where they're going from being like sort of captain and first officer to being sort of friends, to being like old comrades, and it feels like that. It feels like Picard's kind of is previous Picard, and he's opening up a little bit kind of thing. And then the idea of and obviously this whole scene is played out later on in the episode, as we'll know, but it's the fact of it's just wonderful storytelling. It's wonderful sort of it's a lot of exposition happening in this scene. It's got the lovely little cameo from Troy in it.
Oh, I love that.
And I thought I really fucking loved this scene. Like, yeah, this is what Trek is to me. It's the talking. Like, and this episode has all of it. Like, guns are fired in this episode, but the fact is the majority of it is literally people talking, the politics, the human element of it. And it's brilliant. It's brilliant to see that back, like in modern Trek, But yeah, are you going to talk about Troy appearing?
I love that little cameo where she's just like, he's just projectile vomited over engineering. While you're having a drink, and then at the end she's like, bring the whiskey, and I'm like, yeah, she has nailed motherhood.
It's a shame though. It's a shame though that she can't do the voice, because obviously I don't think she's ever been able to do the voice since the original show, has she?
It's
like the Troy
Middle
voice,
Atlantic voice, as they call it.
It's so different to her normal voice as an actress. And she, the original series, and every time we see her, like even in First Contact, I don't think she had it. She had a weird kind of voice, and you're just like, have you just forgotten how to do this?
Well, she was half pissed in First Contact.
Yeah.
We don't have time to talk about time, so don't lecture me on time. But no, that was the only other thing I've got to mention is another bloody uniform in this era. How many uniforms does Starfleet have within like the 2380s? Because between Lower Decks, Prodigy, Picard, and all this, my God, there's like 50 different bloody uniforms at this.
It's Starfleet's just to get merch money out of you.
Oh, it's 100% cost. Look at this. Just keep this. Yeah. Keep this. Change the badge. That's all you need to do. Just change the badge.
Is that from Garrick's Tailors?
Why, yes.
Why, yes. My dear doctor.
My dear doctor. Yes. This is my way too big for me now Starfleet uniform. I bought this 5 stone ago. Now it is just literally falling off me. However, keeps riding up. So I keep having to do the Picard maneuver. So if you see me all the way through the episode doing this, it's purely because it will show my gut if I don't. But
that's part of it though. Like in TNG, like there were concept whenever they stood up, the actors like readjusted, the uniform. It was just like that's how it was designed, really. Like Star Trek Starfleet not really considering it very well. But yeah, I absolutely love that scene. And
I think overall this episode, and I'll get into it, but I think the pacing was slightly different to the last 2 episodes, and I think it's because we stayed mainly on Titan for the first half, because the next scene is still on the Titan, and basically they're going to shore. We've lost center coverage, and she's like, just get people to look out the goddamn windows. And again, this is questions that people have always asked of Star Trek. It's like, we've lost center coverage. Look out your goddamn windows. You've got thousands of goddamn windows on these ships. And Shaw actually does it. He posts people on decks staring out the windows. And I'm like, finally, after like 60 years of Star Trek, that you've got people looking out of the windows.
I quite like it, though. I quite like the idea of like the resourcefulness of just being like, we're buggered.
Yeah. And it's, and Shaw for me, he's still a dick. We understand why he's a dick, but he cares about his crew because obviously he relieves Sydney and the other helmsman after, what was it, a 34-hour shift that he says? I've just got the note here. Yeah. 34-hour shift. And then Sydney goes and visits 7 of 9 in her quarters. And this was a nice little scene.
She's been relieved of duty.
Yeah.
Insubordination.
Yeah. She's confined to quarters. She's got a security guard, and Sydney pays her a visit. And I'm liking Sydney LaForge. I mean, I do think she talks about her dad a little bit too much for me, but I'm liking her as a character overall.
I think it's one of these things because it's like, I suppose they're having to. I think it's the idea of, obviously we know that it's coming. We know that Geordie's going to be in the series later. But if you didn't come into it, I think this amount of foreshadowing of going, if you somehow are watching this and you haven't seen TNG, he is, he is a character that's going to appear, and her explaining it is like foreshadowing of, oh yeah, there's this guy and he's an amazing engineer and he's like this and he's like this, and he's really close with his friends, but he doesn't make friends easily, kind of thing. I think it's basically just covering all bases rather than just having a character pop up and be like, hey, you know all about this, don't you? I hope so.
Yeah. I loved it. I also love the fact that at the end, she calls her Commander 7. Because we know Shaw prefers that she's called Commander Hansen, Annika Hansen. She has to be called by a human name. And I love this, that little bit where she's like Commander 7. And I just loved it because she's like, I see you for who you are.
Yeah.
And for me, that was, I love that scene. But then we get to one of my favorite scenes of this episode, the sickbay scene between Beverly and Jean-Luc. And I think lesser actors could not have been able to pull this off. Because this is the scene that we've been waiting for the last 2-3 weeks, where it's like, right, okay, that's Jack Crusher, that's Beverly's son. And we had a discussion about this last week. How was he conceived and when was he conceived?
Did we get any comments? I haven't been checking. Did anyone comment telling us?
No,
damn it.
But I have to congratulate you because, my God, Graeme, you were right.
What?
No.
I had the
theory that he was conceived because Ed Spieler is 34 years old, and I said, oh, well, he must have been conceived in between season 1 and season 2, 1988.
I said this last week, but actors can be different ages to their characters. Goodwill.
And she went.
It's like in most teen dramas, they're like 30 odd.
And she went straight in, and she was like, no, it was 2 months after I left the Enterprise. 2 months before I left the Enterprise, we were on a romantic thing, and I was like, oh, Dave. So he's like 20, he's 22 years old.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, wow. And we get this brilliant to and from between Beverly and Picard, and Patrick Stewart and Gates McFadden are just flawless in this scene.
It is fantastic. Before we do this scene, though, I just want to mention, in the earlier scene where it's got Crusher helping out in sickbay.
Yes.
And what I just wanted to point out what a lovely callback it was, that it's, I think it was Dr. Oka.
Yes, the Trill. Yes.
Was she a Trill?
She's a Trill, yes. Yes.
I am dumb. I did not notice that at all. I was just like, oh, she's wearing a lab coat. But I loved it how she referred to Crusher's methods as like old, where she was kind of going like, oh, you've missed out on 20 years of sort of like technology and stuff. And it was a wonderful kind of callback to, is it Relics from TNG, where they get Scotty? And they get Scotty out the transporter. Yeah. And then obviously it's got him being like, oh, this is how you do this. And obviously LaForge being like sort of, no, that's not how you fix anything anymore. And it was a cool little callback, I felt, to that, of basically someone superseding Crusher. But then obviously later on in the episode, she gets a kind of redemption that Scotty didn't get. Because it was like, Scotty's coming along and be like, no, you don't want to do your dilithium crystals like this. And he was right. Well, no, and LaForge was right that it was a shit way of doing it.
They did this with Jean. Sorry, I can't get the words out. They did this with Jean-Luc in the first episode, because obviously they say prepare for maximum warp, and he's like, should we alert engineering? And Seven was like, we don't do this in new ships. Yeah. And I think we've had this with Picard, and now we've had this with Crusher. And I'm just thinking, oh yeah, it's the old dogs, but the old dogs can still teach new tricks. But yeah, so we get into the scene between Crusher and Picard, and he just asks what the whole audience is asking: how? Well, I mean, obviously
he should know. He should know.
Yeah, he was there. Or his human body was.
It was touch and go. That's
yes, it was touch and go. The Riker maneuver was conquered. But it's a beautiful scene where she's like, I fell pregnant during our shore leave 2 months before I left the Enterprise, and you were called back, and blah 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 blah. And he just basically says, "Why didn't you tell me?" And she's like, "You are Picard. you are always called to the stars. You've
Mm.
always got a target on your back, basically. And she didn't want that for his son. And she didn't want Jack to not have a father. And the whole scene where it's just basically, I fell pregnant during that shore leave, and then within 2 months you had a gun to your head by these Remans, and then not a few days later there was a photonic grenade, and as you were negotiating a praetor, she was like, I cannot have my son worrying about his father and living that life and stuff like that. And the whole, like, I was a bit dubious with the whole son thing, and I think a lot of people were. They were like, "How are they going to explain it away?" Because the main trend in most shows, it's just like, it's this child that no one knew they had, and they've just been canonized.
It's also the fact of with hi Christopher, welcome to the chat. Lovely
hi,
to see you on the stream. No, it's that problem though with Star Trek when most things have already been done, and they're like, "Oh bollocks, we already did that trick." Because if they went, "Oh, he's a clone of Picard," then it's like, kind of did a whole film about that. Done. It's like, I can't really do that anymore. It's like, oh, maybe it's an android of Picard. Well, no, but I thought this scene was great because it seemed like a role reversal between the two of them. Because in TNG, it was always the other way around. It was always Crusher on Picard's back, basically them being the emotional one, them being the sort of like, oh, we need to do this, why are you being so cold, why are you shutting me out kind of thing, and Picard like resisting. And then this was the total opposite, like how their roles have changed, where she's the one being like stalwart and not giving anything up, and then Picard's the one going, look, I want to be invested here. I will say though, his whole thing of going, you took the decision from me by not giving me one. Well, no. Jack was born because she gave him one, but you know what I mean. But it might have been two. I don't know how long they had before he had to go back to work. But the idea, it seemed really strange though that that's exactly what he just did to Jack. Like the whole thing is Jack was trying to give himself up in the previous episode and transport over to the other ship, and yet Picard kind of just went, no, I'll make a decision for you. So yeah, a bit of a cheeky thing there, but
it was beautifully acted, and Picard saying, you never gave me the chance. Like you took that decision away from me. You knew what my father was like. Shout out to season 2 with the father. But you took away my opportunity to decide. And he was like, I've had 20 years that I will never have. And I loved how there was a little callback to All Good Things where he said, I could have been a father, I could have been a husband. And obviously that was a callback to All Good Things, where in the alternate reality, they were married and they got divorced. And then Beverly went back to Starfleet, which was so it was a good little nod to that. But it was one of my favorites episodes. We got everything cleared up, and I think it was like one scene where
even Jack's accent, they even just threw that in to be like, oh yeah, by the way.
Yes. And he went to school in London and just never lost it. I guess he takes, basically he takes after you. And I'm like, oh yeah, because Picard went to school in England, because that was also explained in season 2, where it was like we are French, but during World War II we moved to England. And he's like, oh, Dip, so your family just stayed in England, and then
it was one of those things. It's a bit Highlander with a bit Highlander, where you're like, okay, so you're an Egyptian, you're what is it? Sean Connery's character in it, where he's meant to be Egyptian, but then he's like Spanish. He like dresses like a Spaniard, and then he's got a Scottish accent. It's like Picard, where it's like, oh yeah, he's French, and you're like, however.
Yeah.
So I kind of like that they've done it the same way. They've gone like, oh yeah, he's technically my son. He's not English. However, he just sounds English because of reasons.
But then we have a scene outside of sickbay with Riker and Jack, which again I really loved, because we saw the father side of Riker come out in this. And there's a quote that he says, because obviously Jack's like, stop staring at me. And he goes on about, how Picard's Jack's father, and he's like, don't call him, he's not, don't call him, don't call him dad. Don't call him my dad.
The surprise here was that I didn't realize that Jack knew. So obviously in the episode, it kind of comes out that Jack was quite aware that Picard was his father. And, because Riker, when Riker mentions it, it's not like a bomb dropping. Jack's just like, meh,
Yeah, because he says to Jack, I spent 2 decades getting cooked, watching you getting cooked up in a spaceship. Obviously alluding to the fact that during the time on the Enterprise D&E...
Surely Riker should know, like, conception doesn't take that long.
I know, yeah. But he's alluding to the fact, like, much like him and Deanna during the Enterprise D era, just watching that tension between them and watching the relationship go to and from and on and off. And then, Picard also says back in the sickbay scene, 5 times, we broke it off 5 times. Yeah. And you're like, oh, damn, you actually have, it has been 5 times that they've done this, but it's the way that the fatherly side of Riker comes out in this scene, and only Jonathan Frakes could portray this so well. And
he is phenomenal. Like, it's the sort of thing of seeing Jonathan Frakes again and just being like, you are really good. I'm laughing at Paul in the chat because he's asking, how long does conception take? Asking for a friend. Paul, it really varies. It could be 9 months. It could be like a couple of seasons like we had here. It could even be 1 episode in the case of Angel. And that only takes 1 like demon dimension, I think.
But all the way through this, up to this point of the episode, we're seeing these energy pulses appear on the ship. The lights get brighter and then they get dimmer, and people don't know what they are. And it happens again on sickbay. And Picard walks out of sickbay. He speaks to Riker because he totally ignores Jack. He just walks away because at this point, Picard is still, although he knows he's his son, he doesn't have the mechanisms to cope and to process it properly.
Is it because he's realized that Jack, technically, if he's his son, it means he's a child and he hates kids?
Potentially, because
do you reckon Jack is going to be celebrating what is it, Picard
Captain Day? Picard Day with a little doll? I'll be on the bridge. But we obviously, Picard walks past Jack and he goes, "Walk with me, Will." And even Will goes, "That is your son. What, why are you speaking to him?" And Picard's just totally focused on the fact that, I have got this entire ship into this mess. I am going to apologize to Shaw. Makes it to the bridge, and even before he could say a word, the Shrike is on them, and they run. They absolutely run, and the Shrike is firing at them, and I think this scene where Shaw gets absolutely walloped was brilliant, because I thought this was it for Shaw.
Yeah,
I genuinely thought this was it for Shaw, because you have that explosion.
It would be a shame to lose a character. Like, after we've literally hated him 1 episode, started loving him the next episode, we're like, oh, you're dead now. Oh, no,
yeah.
But it's the fact that it's the difference between normal Star Trek and Picard, the fact of, like, we get to see blood. Like, and how kind of important it is here, where you're just like, oh, he is fucked. Like, he literally hits the ground hard. Like,
he gets blown up by the console exploding, goes through and really
why do they
hits his
do
head
that, by
deck.
the way? No one's ever mentioned, like, why they just go, you know what? How about we make it where the console explodes when we get shot from outside?
Yeah.
Like, surely they would build the computer. And actually, I was noticing with the computers where you have, like, they never used to have screens that freaked out. You know how, like, throughout the whole thing, it's like, oh, in the nebula, and there's, like, electromagnetic, like, disturbance, and all the screens are, like, flickering and stuff. And I'm like, didn't used to do that. It's like, oh, well, not like it was in the old days.
The advancement in technology. I mean,
they made it worse. They got cheap ones from eBay.
shout out to Michael Okuda and Doug Drexler, who I mean, Michael Okuda invented LCARs from the next generation onwards. They've been nicknamed Okudagrams, and this is Okudagram all over. Absolutely beautiful. But yeah, so sure, the console explodes. It's a power surge. Why no one in the 24th, 25th century has ever heard of surge protection?
Well, you know,
I honestly
considering
don't know.
you have like O'Brien who has like second backups and whatnot, and then you just got them being like, no, we'll make it so that you know the electricity just goes straight into the glass screen. That's a great thing to do.
But Shaw gets his head, like he hits his head. I mean, really the wallop, and then you just see the blood pooling out of his mouth, and then he just looks at Riker and he goes, "You got us into this. You get us out." And he just transfers commands. He's like, "No, your job now," and goes to sick bay.
See, I loved it because it's like, "Hey there, Blue Harvest Toys.
Oh, hey, Blue Harvest Toys."
Yeah, no, I like though that it's basically like Shaw is determined, even though he's like, "Hey, I need to put things in your hands because I respect you and know you're capable of doing this, but I'm not happy about it." Like it's literally he's not backing down. He's still like, "I'm not happy about this, but fuck you know, you're in charge." And the way he delivers it, it's so venomous. It's so sort of like.
I'm
so honestly angry just to be in this situation. He's the most like the weight on his shoulders that have been put upon by other people.
I've said this before, but he's a dick, but he is a dick that's right, and I am warming to him every single episode. And he knows now, even semi-conscious, dripping with blood, and he's like, he knows to relieve duty. He knows it's the right thing to do. He's compromised. The next chain of command is Riker. It can't be Picard because Picard's retired. And he does that. And I'm like, yeah. And Shaw, for me, is, out of everything we've seen so far, bar the legacy characters, Shaw is the standout performer of Star Trek Picard. And Todd Stashwick plays him perfectly.
But I'm enjoying all of the characters, but I think I'd agree that Shaw is one of the new characters we can like, because obviously, like we said through the previous series, it's like, hey, we introduced loads of characters, and did they really land? Did we really know what to do with them? And then he is very much kind of like, yeah, I love him. He's a great addition to the show.
Yeah. Also, shout out for this scene. They find the Shrike by looking out the goddamn window. Yes.
Oh, it's a big ship.
Windows. Finally.
Finally used for windows.
But then we go back.
Also in this scene where he gets Picard, and Picard becomes the number one.
Oh,
see, I love that, and I
forgot about that. Yeah, where he's like, Picard, can you fire a torpedo whilst rolling and then use physics? He's like, I've already done it. And it's like, oh damn. And then obviously you see that the visual effects in modern Star Trek are brilliant, and this again is a bar above what we have seen so far. So we see that lovely shockwave bit where they fire the torpedo, phaser causes a shockwave, just propels the Shrike God knows where, and then obviously Picard goes, "Call me number one," and Will's like, "Hell yeah, I'm the boss now, yeah." And then
Blue Harvest, what do you say? What are you saying? Which is what? Love the episode, but my one gripe is Riker wouldn't say that to Jean-Luc Picard. Are you saying that later on when we'll get to that?
We'll get to that, because the next scene takes us back to Metalis Prime, which is strange because, in the previous episodes we've had it intertwined, but again, this is why I said the pacing is much better in this episode, because they've sort of gone like half the episode is here, then the other half is here. We go back to Metalis Prime, and we've got a lovely callback to Star Trek First Contact with Berlioz playing as Worf is doing his Tai Chi blade maneuvers. Raffi's like coming down. She's like, who the fuck's on my ship here? And he does his Tai Chi. And at the crescendo of the musical arrangement, Worf just turns around and just takes the gun straight out of her hand. And she's like, who are you? And he's like, and I've had to write it down because goddamn, when I go to Costa or Starbucks, this is what I want to write on my
what's your name?
I am Worf, son of Morg, House of Martak, son of Sergei, House of Rishenko, Bane to the Jurash, Slayer of Gowron. I have made some chamomile tea. Do you take sugar?
I love the callbacks, like all the references to Martok from DS9, instances, references to Gowron, who is one of my favorite things ever, because that actor, I've never seen an actor have as much fun as the guy who plays Gowron.
Shout out to Gowron's eyes.
Like there was no scenery left. There was never any scenery left in the scene because he's just taking the mic, and he's so good. But it's also the fact of like the how will you take your tea is like it feels like a reference to TNG where it's like good tea, nice house, which is one of my favorite bits ever. Where you just get Worf sitting there with a cup of tea, and it's like
good tea.
It's that amazing use of like Worf for comedy. And it doesn't happen that much in DS9, but in the TNG, the early TNG, he's very much a comedic character where it plays upon how powerful he is and how notorious he is. Yeah. And then they make it comical because he's in situations that you can't imagine it. And so it's great that they kind of brought that back here, like by basically being like, he is a legend in the universe, the Alpha Quadrant.
He is a Klingon. He is a Klingon that is so goddamn deadpan. And I will never forget where the episode of TNG where Q becomes human, and he's like, "How can I prove to you that I am human?" And Worf just sits and goes, "Die." And it's so brilliantly delivered by Michael Dorn as well. And this, like I said, this whole scene where he's just like, "Do you take sugar?" It's just like, it's absolutely brilliant.
The one thing I will say, and it didn't really come across in this scene, it came across in a later scene, like how good Michael Dorn is, obviously. Like it's this weird thing is the rapport between him and Raffi throughout this whole episode is amazing. And I'm just like, oh my God, they know how to use Raffi now. They found a wonderful foil for Raffi. I love this like coupling. But it's the idea of like Michael Dorn doesn't really suit the makeup. Like you get the impression that Michael Dorn is still youthful enough that he could just be normal Worf. And so it feels a bit weird that he's like gray. And I know loads of time has passed, but I don't know if it's the only thing I can criticize this episode on is the fact that Worf does kind of look
he's over
made up, maybe. I don't know.
It doesn't help that Michael Dorn in real life is a lot slimmer than what he used to be when he played Worf, because
which is the opposite we usually see, because usually we're like, oh, it's a Trek actor. Oh, they're massive now.
with Michael Dorn, obviously, Dorn was he loved a burger. He absolutely loved a burger.
He loved a burger. That's what I want on my epitaph. That's going to be my tombstone. He loved a burger.
He loved his meat, and he loved
Five Guys.
Yeah.
Well, that's more of a sort of aspiration, really, actually.
Oh my. So he was naturally stockier when he played Worf, but there's a story behind it, because Michael Dorn in real life got cancer.
Wow.
And they basically said, look, you need to change your entire diet to help you get over this cancer. I mean, it was treatable, but you needed to change your diet. So Michael Dorn became a vegan a few years ago, and basically within a year, he transformed from this really stocky, well-built man to the lean.
That was the most tactical searching of words I've ever seen.
Of course, yeah. But he became, he transformed from that type of body to lean and trim and athletic. And I think I do believe in this season they will explain that, because we know from the trailers that Worf is a pacifist. And I wonder, with the whole chamomile tea, are they going to
chop a man's head off
in self-defense, Graeme?
No, you can't be like, oh, I'm a pacifist, but only when it's.
It was a.
Can you just imagine Gandhi just gunning people down, just telling people he's like, they came right for me.
Shout out to Sneed, by the way.
I thought you were going to shout out to Gandhi.
Well, shout out to Gandhi as well, but shout out to Sneed, greatest Ferengi name in all of Ferenginar. Sluggo Cola, the slimiest cola in the galaxy.
Cola in the universe. In the galaxy, there we go.
In the galaxy. Shout out, because I still firmly believe somewhere in the Alpha and Beta Quadrant there is Gary the Ferengi.
Shout out to Gary the Ferengi.
Shout out to Gary. I said it last week and I will say it again. Gary the Ferengi is somewhere because why wouldn't you embrace other cultures' names? We do it here on Earth. Let the Ferengi have Gary, Derek, and Bob.
The wonderful thing about Star Trek is anything can happen. Like pretty much anything can happen as long as you can give it a consistent pseudoscience explanation.
Yeah.
I absolutely love the scene. We get a wonderful rapport between him and Raffi. He kind of explains everything. Like he kind of goes, "Hey, I knew what was going on. I didn't want to get you in danger. That's why we didn't tell you about anything." And it's an interesting one because he still keeps it cryptic, but it's also the idea of obviously like bringing the fact that Raffi is, I don't know, she's very much searching for a purpose and it's kind of messing things up. Like, because she put herself in real danger in the last episode and she would have got killed if Worf hadn't have helped.
Yeah. And it's sort of like, it's basically, we're joining forces now. And at the end of the scene, she's just looking and she's looking a bit full because she's like, oh my God, you're a legend and this, that, and the other. And we get no backstory for Worf in this scene. It's just basically, I have learned to work on myself, as the humans say. But then he's like, we believe, I believe that it's this person called Titus Ricker. I'm not aligned with, my goals are aligned with Starfleet. So think of me as a subcontractor, which I thought, odd word, but okay, let's go with it. And then he's like, you're going to help me find Titus Ricker, gives her the gun back, and she just goes, cool. And it's just like, if Worf comes to you and he's like, I'm Worf, lists off all of his accomplishments, he's like, let's join forces.
Slayer of Garon.
Yeah, I'd be like, hell yeah. Yeah, let's go find a scummy human while we're at it.
I mean, even if you didn't know TNG before seeing this, it's enough. It's enough to go, oh, he's really tough. Oh, he has all these titles and stuff like that, and how she reacts to him, and that's kind of all the introduction you need for Worf. Hey, no money, G. Worf is working on himself, as the human said. That's exactly exactly what he says.
He's working on himself. But then we go back
the burgers. Oh my God,
he stopped the burgers. Yeah. But then we go back to the Titan, and Sydney's like, we've got 20 minutes until we've got warp power. And then we get the start of the to and from Picard and Riker.
Yeah, I just want to mention something. I've got a note before this bit, which is basically, is it the science officer on the bridge, the Vulcan? Oh, the Vulcan. The bridge.
Yes.
And I got really freaked out because I was like, what's wrong with them? Like, there's something seriously wrong with them, and I couldn't put my finger on it for ages. And then the second time they pop up, I'm like, they're bald. Have we ever had a bald Vulcan before? And maybe, but like, I was literally just like, I was trying to pick something, and I was just like, well, what's wrong with them? And I'm like, oh, they're bald. No, it's like such a strange decision, really.
If we have ever had a bald Vulcan in Star Trek, someone in the chat or down in the comments below, let me know, because from memory,
we can't Google it. Someone in the chat, Google it and let us know if
Google
there's been
go to Memory Vulcan. Alpha, cheat. Go to Memory Alpha, the Star Trek wiki.
But it's interesting because obviously this is another thing where the series is going going away from the stereotypes. Like, it's going away from the cliches that the older ones had to rely on for identity, like Romulans always having the same haircut, the bowl cut, and the shoulders and stuff. And now they're like, no, Romulans don't have to be like that. So I thought it was a nice little touch that they're like, hey, it's a Vulcan that, and we've seen a lot of Vulcans. Like in Enterprise, we get to see like Vulcans in that what is it, the second episode of season 2 or whatever, where they go back in, where it's basically about the first Vulcans that landed on Earth, and they're in that
Carbon
village.
Creek.
Yeah, that's a great little episode, by the way. I really like that one. But you get to be like, hey, these are Vulcans in a very odd situation and whatnot. But yeah, I just thought I'd point that out because I thought it was really interesting.
I absolutely, I like this new crew. I would love to know more about this new crew. The Bajoran helmsman. Obviously, we've got Sydney, the Vulcan. They do have names, but forgive me, the names slip me at the moment. But yeah, so we this is the first scene where we start to see tension between Picard and Riker, because Picard wants to fight, Riker wants to run. But this is the first inkling that we've got a difference of opinion between them both. And then when we go down to sickbay, and Shaw's vitals start dropping. And Jack runs over because he's busy treating someone else, but he runs over and they turn Shaw on the side. And this is the redeeming moment that you referenced earlier for Crusher.
Yeah.
Where, oh, he's bleeding internally. Oh, well, nothing showed up. And he's like, ha, it wouldn't show up initially if it was a concussion. And I was like, yes, Beverly, you know your shit. Teach the trill.
Yeah.
Teach her who's boss. And they lean over. And Shaw, even when he's in immense pain and is potentially dying, is looking Jack in the eyes and he's like, how do they keep finding us? And then Jack just looks at the trip. By the way, how much blood does Shaw have in his body?
Well, to be fair, Jack explains it later on by pointing out to that ensign, basically, hey, you have a lot of blood in your body. You'll be fine.
Yeah.
Well, so humans have a lot of blood in them. Don't ask.
Have a lot of blood, yeah. So, but he asks Jack, how do they keep finding it? And Jack looks at the trail of blood coming from outside of sickbay into the biobed. And he knows, he thinks he knows something. So, he does a runner. We go back to the bridge and it's like 10 minutes to go. And then we see more of these energy pulses. And then the Vulcan science officer, she's like, we don't know what they are. I think it's an anomaly. It's both artificial and biological at the same time. And we can't really go into it. But if we go any further into the nebula, we'll get pulled into the gravity well. We have to essentially turn around and run. So Riker's basically saying, right, Sydney, tell engineering, I don't care how long it takes to get to the end of the nebula, but they have got until then to basically pop the clutch and go.
Yeah.
Because we are running.
So in the chat, we've had a lot of people searching for bald Vulcans, and apparently I'm totally wrong. Apparently they're in the motion picture and they're in search for Spock. So fuck my drag. Also, Christopher's Googled bald Vulcan pics, and we don't want to know what he's found.
Yeah, incognito mode is.
Thank you, DeviantArt.
So obviously they start running, and then again the Shrike turns up right behind them.
How does she keep finding us?
How do they keep finding them? But then we get the use of the portal gun. And I said it last week and I'll say it again. The cake is a lie.
It's so good, this. But this is the thing. It's like we had it in the video game Portal and stuff, but portals could be really so abused. I guess we see it in one of the X-Men films. Is it Days of Future Past, where it has the horrendous future, but it has the character who can make portals? Chat, you might know better about who this is. But you could just sever people's arms. You could literally just cut someone's head off if you had the power to generate portals anywhere. It's a crazy good ability. And it's great seeing the Shrike doing it. Obviously the Shrike doesn't want to destroy them. They need someone alive, and obviously Beverly's suggesting that maybe it's Picard that she's after technically, even though she's going for his son. But they don't want to kill them. They don't want to kill them, but they're sort of basically just going, hey, you can't escape the nebula this way, and basically teleporting them back to where they were, and they just indefinitely do it.
I loved it. I loved it because it was like a cat toying with their prey, where it's just and again, Amanda Plummer in this scene all the way through, she doesn't get much attention, but she is calm, and you can tell that Vedic is calculated.
I think we established her last episode. We established I keep going, she's not called Vedic because that's what the Bajoran priests are called, but then she is, so it's so Vedic, and I keep correcting myself.
Vedic Baral.
Yeah, that's it. Vedic Riley's back again. Just die. You've got a fucking robot brain.
Shout out to my Bajorans.
Shout out to my Bajoran Omi. But
I'll put the badge on the other side. I'll just take off my uniform and have a Bajoran fleet uniform.
We'll just put our earrings on. Open the orb of prophecy. Have a bit of a glance in there. And the fact is, she didn't need too much time now because we've established that she's a threat. She's really powerful. And I think it's just, it was just wonderful.
She's hunting her prey.
Yeah, like establishing a character that well in a show where you can now just go, we'll just have some reaction shots, or we'll just have her being like, oh, attack, or oh, fire kind of thing. It's
Yeah. And people are like, oh, well, if she's firing this portal, then why does the Titan just fly in? Why doesn't the Titan just go left? Or why does the Titan just go up or down? And I'm like, dude, right, I know these are fake ships, but they are heavy as fuck.
yeah.
Fake ships. Have you ever seen an oil tanker turn on a dime? No, because they are heavy. So
Well,
they don't have, once they're in momentum, they can't suddenly just turn and
well, this is the thing, because in the chat, I think it was Blue Harvest was saying that like the ships are weirdly maneuverable. And I'm like, not in this episode. In this episode, you very much go, they're like, let's turn, and they're like,
it's sort of, yeah.
You're just like, oh bollocks! I'm pretty sure they used to be better than that, but
it's sort of
plot purposes. They're kind of going, okay, it can't really turn that well.
They're sort of showing like this ship is heavy, and it is a little bit cumbersome to because this was the same for the Enterprise D, the fat one as they called it in episode 1. They're not maneuverable as you may think because they are really big things that they need to move, and all those, it's space, but still it's a lot of stuff to move with little tiny thrusters and impulse engines and stuff like that. But the whole toying with them, where it's basically, we keep going further out, she'll just keep pulling us back, and it's like Riker's like, oh dip, like what are we basically what are we going what are we going to do, because we are in a net. We are trapped. But then they go back. Obviously, it goes back to Metalis Prime. A little bit of a short scene, this one, I thought, where they're looking for Titus Ricker. But I love the little tune in front. And I absolutely agree with what you said earlier on about Raffi and Worf. They are utilizing Raffi with Worf 110%. The chemistry is there. The Raffi now has a purpose in this season.
Yeah, no, it's the fact of I'm going, oh, thank God they're using Raffi properly, because, like, obviously Agnes got, like, redemption last season. I think Rico was kind of fine. Like, Rico was kind of fine throughout, even if they didn't really do Rikos, sorry. They didn't really do enough with his, like, holograms. I thought that was a bit of a shame that they could have done a lot more with that. But yeah. It's great they're using Raffi. And I just wonder if it's Michael Dorn. I just wonder if Michael Dorn is one of those actors where they can make anyone great alongside them.
He has been in more Trek than any other actor known to man. He is a seasoned alumni. So I think he...
Hold on. Blue Harvest is saying Strange New Worlds Enterprise turns like Ottoman's car. He's just like, okay, fair cop.
Fair cop on that one, fair cop. Yeah, so but this was a show, and I love the dialogue between Raffi and Worf, where she's like, "You don't look inconspicuous." He's like, "This is casual," and she's like, "Casual for a beheading?" And she's like, "Oh, I didn't realize beheadings were on a Tuesday." And obviously, they then see Titus, and then they have this little tiny little chase, and Worf just slams Titus into this. I mean, even I'm going, oh, that must have really hurt, because it's just literally whoop, boof.
Yeah, it's great stunts where it's basically like the fact of the way they filmed it and stuff makes that look painful, and it's just that's great. Yeah.
That was a metal table, and that must have hurt. And then that tiny little quip at the end where Worf just looks around and goes, "Beheadings are on a Wednesday." I'm like, oh,
I love that they're using him in a comedy fashion in this one. Where it's like,
if we get more of Worf acting like that this season, more to it. Bring it. This will again, and I've said this for the last 20 years, Captain Worf series, please.
I think it's really interesting. Like, I think this is going to be, I wonder if this season is like the taster thing where they're kind of, where basically they're just going, hey, this actor probably could carry a series. They're probably testing things out to be like, could we do this? And obviously, there is things that come very, very soon in the episode that basically make me very happy about that. Yes, you could go in this direction for another series, could you
if
not?
you are fielding for spin-offs, I will happily provide you with a list because my God.
But Paul is just like, everyone gets a spin-off, and it's like the Oprah thing where it's like, you get a spin-off, you get a spin-off.
And I'm like, Paramount, if you are ending shows and you want new ones, you have got plenty of opportunities from these 3 episodes. You've got plenty of opportunities. But it was a nice quick scene with Dawn, and we get that lovely little quip, and then it goes back to the Titan where Jack goes, he tries to get to the bridge, and they're like, nope, you're not going anywhere. So he goes back to Seven, and he's like, look, we are leaving a trail. You were a Fenris Ranger. You know this shit. What could it be? Because he's like, they are finding us when they shouldn't be finding us. And then it comes to the deduction that it's the deuterium the deuterium that coats the warp coils. They believe that there could be a leak from that because all the Shrike needs is a mass spectrometer. They don't need sophisticated sensors. They literally just need a spectrometer to look for the gaseous trail and follow that trail, and that's how they're finding them. And I'm like, oh, okay. And then we get, again, Jack Crush is shining here, where the security guard is just like, can't let you leave. Oh, that's a shame. Thwap. And he just knocks him back. And then Seven just going, you haven't seen.
Yeah. Well, to me, she can hardly talk. Like, she's been kicked off for insubordination. It's like, well, I think they're both fucked if unless they're going to be given like let off the hook later, they're both going to have consequences for what they've already done. So she's hardly one to talk.
This scene, there's a great intertwining between the bridge and Seven, where we're starting to go, oh, right, so there's a saboteur aboard the ship now. The audience is like, okay, we might have a little.
It's kind of interesting though, because this wasn't foreshadowed at all, but I wonder if it was. I kind of wonder if we watched episode 1 or 2 back, there might be sort of like a something, it feels like that kind of quality of series. But there's a saboteur aboard, and it's like, oh, that's really odd. Surely they would know who that, who that was.
Yeah, it's this is like the first a new mystery that comes in, and then in between this, we've still got Picard and Riker at odds by saying Picard wants to fight, Riker just wants to get, and I love when Riker just basically says, I am taking this ship and this crew home. And I love that because I want to discuss it later, but the way Picard says this doesn't feel like Picard for me. He's like, this is an admiral. This is a person who knows there's 500 souls aboard and his son.
Yeah.
And he wants to run. He wants to fight.
I was going to say, it's like, and this caught me off guard as well, because it's the idea of, but you've already pointed out that it's futile. You've already pointed out like how outgunned you
Resistance is futile, Graeme.
Yeah. Oh God, he's turning into Locutus. Back to Locutus. Let's milk that one fucking dry. That one, that 2-episode arc. Let's just milk it again. But it's very much that, I don't know why he does that, and I assume it's because he's desperate, and we've never seen Picard actually making bad decisions out of desperation. And I don't know. I felt it could have had a bit more build up to him being like, we need to fight because it's our only option, because that is what he's saying. But obviously, I'm pretty sure they could escape. I'm pretty sure that
a few agile maneuvers, the Picard maneuver, well, they couldn't do the Picard maneuver, but, I'm pretty sure they could do something, Kirk Beta Epsilon or whatever they call the evasive maneuvers in Star Trek. So I'm pretty sure they could do that. But I found this bit a bit odd. But obviously, this scene interplays between Seven and Jack
for the plot. So we'll give him that one.
Yeah. But this interplays between Seven and Jack, and obviously they go to one of the engineering sections, and they go, there is a leak here, and the atmospheric sensors have been disabled. They find that someone has sabotaged the sensors, a full-on blunt, point blank phasered the sensors. So Seven's like, right, put on your mask. I'll go do this. And then when I tell you, you restore the system. As they're doing that, shifty guy from episode 1.
A shifty guy from a shifty guy from episode 1 appears. Who did actually was he the guy looking through the back window earlier?
Like, oh yes, he was. Yes,
and because I wondered why he was so angry. Like he cuts off the other person, and I was like, why have they put that bit in? Like, is he just a random? Like, was he just saying, "Hey, on starships you get dickheads"? But, like, and they're not just sure. But yeah, so it was interesting. Like, I didn't pick up immediately that it was the same guy, like there. But yes, the guy comes along and he bashes Jack around with a bit more force than a human might be capable of, or a Bajorian might be capable of.
But then, Graeme, Jack kicks back, and what happens?
Yes, it gets better later, but I was literally the hope in my heart. That's weather things. The hope in my heart started rising, and I was like, "Oh, will they? Oh, is this what we've been waiting for?" But yes, Jack punches him, and his face shimmers basically, as though it's not fully.
And I thought for a split second, in the age of streaming, I thought, has my graphical quality suddenly destabilized during this part of the episode? Because I was like, I've gone to standard def, and I was like,
it's fucked.
Yeah, and I out loud went, "Oh, what the? Oh," and then I was like, "Oh, oh,"
yes,
and I was out loud going, "Oh."
But then obviously we go to the next scene, which basically sort of cements it, because obviously, well, the next scene is Raffi and Worf, isn't it, or is it?
So Jack gets knocked unconscious, and the shifty yellow shirt, as I'll call
shifty yellow shirt,
shifty Granville, shifty yellow shirt legs it. Jack is dying from gas inhalation, thank you. And then it goes into the interrogation scene with Raffi and Worf, where they're doing the old good cop, bad cop, and Raffi is just literally.
I love how Worf is the crazy good cop, and it's like, this is just a
brilliant, isn't it?
Pairing,
It's such a dramatic reversal from what we know of Worf, where Raffi's like, "I'm gonna pull out your fingernails one by one just to make me feel better," and Worf's like, "Mm-hmm."
He's just like, no. It's beheadings are Wednesdays. The interesting thing is, I didn't realize this, but on one of the gay Trek groups I'm on Facebook, someone pointed out that the actor who plays the captive was actually the child actor who was in Voyager as one of the little Victorian kids. And I'm like, whoa, what a nod that is,
Also, I believe he was in the TV series The Sarah Connor Chronicles as well.
Really?
Yes, I believe.
That's
I can't
crazy.
remember his name. Someone in the chat might be able, or someone in the comments might be able to clarify. But I believe he was that, and he plays withdrawn dude really well in this.
Withdrawn
because
dude.
we think he's like,
is that like one of those terrible IMDb titles where it's
this
like
is me,
woman who shits herself, or like.
This is me without caffeine for 5 minutes, because I'm like, he's got the shakes, he's sweating, and even Raffi's like, dude, why are you like sweating so much? And and for me personally,
she assumes it's withdrawal.
Yeah, and for me at this scene, I'm like, I'm starting to put things together, and I'm like, could it be? But they don't allude to it.
Yeah,
they don't allude to it. Worf steps in and he does his good cop routine, and still doesn't give anything away. We hear nothing from Titus in this scene, because then it flashes straight back to the Titan with Jack hallucinating. And I want to pick your brain about this scene as well. Red vines and red doors. What?
Yeah, I don't know. I was thinking about it, and then obviously my mind was like, no, wait, that's Stranger Things.
Yeah. Oh my God, yes.
Yeah, I was kind of like going, oh yeah, I know what this is. No, wait, that's a totally different show. So I don't know.
Is it Vecna? Like, is it not Vedic? Is it Vecna?
Imagine if it's Vector and I like cross over.
Oh my God. He's back and he's 500 years in the future.
I guess to be fair, D&D is a sort of, well, it's not now, is it? thank you, Wizards of the Coast, but D&D was when they were doing Picard, like a sort of universally applicable thing. So you could probably be like, oh, let's put Vector in bloody in Picard. But no, yeah, I do not know what this was referring to. I liked it, but I think it hit me in a way of, when you don't want to think too much about it because there's going to be a nice payoff later. So I was kind of going, okay, cool. I won't think into this too much because I'm excited to see the reveal.
I will say one thing.
Oh God, we've nearly been going for an hour and a half. Christ.
Good, we will keep going on.
Sorry, everyone in the chat.
I will say one thing. If this is a link to the Red Angel, and I know it won't be, but so help me God, if this is a link to the Red Angel, I will not be happy. Because I saw red and I was just like, no, not the Red Angel. No, please, for the love of God, no.
That's like, we just decided to end Discovery. And now they're like,
yeah, this is how they end Discovery. Yeah. But then Seven picks him up, takes him to sickbay and says to Picard, Jack's injured, I'm taking him to sickbay. And Riker goes, go. Now, this little tiny scene in the turbo lift, Graeme, is 17 seconds long.
Is it? But this is it. This is how amazing this episode is in terms of storytelling, that this whole thing got foreshadowed. You know how last episode you were talking about how amazing the unspoken conversation between Picard and Beverly was, and how it was written so well that you knew exactly what they were thinking, even though they didn't say anything. That's what this did, because it foreshadowed it earlier with Riker talking about how getting the turbo lift to
to Thaddeus's
to Medbay to see if his son was gonna die or not, and then having Picard in exactly the same situation. We're like, we know how it feels because Riker's explained how it feels. It was just, this is masterful. Like, this is like, when we're complaining about Discovery and we're going like, oh, why is the writing so spotty in places kind of thing, this is back to sort of DS9 TNG level, like writing.
Yeah.
Why did I struggle with that word?
These tiny little scenes, like in episode 2 and this 17-second scene, these scenes show why you need someone who is not only worked on Star Trek previously, but loves Star Trek and knows the material to a T. Because obviously this episode was directed by Jonathan Frakes. Need we say more? And Terry Matalis is the showrunner. They know how to hit the right beats in this episode with these tiny little scenes. And like I said, I sat there because I rewatched it and I thought, no. And I timed it and it was 17 seconds in the turbo lift. And I thought, yes. And then
that is clever. I did not know that.
Yeah. And when he gets to sickbay, this is the point. And again, no words are needed. Like last week, no words are needed. But the
subtitle still gives everyone words. Like, I was watching it with the subtitles.
Damn it, Amazon's
moving her mouth, and it still comes up with the words. I'm like, not needed, but thanks, subtitles.
But this scene, like last week's, where there are no words, there are just facial emotions and music. This is the scene where Picard, I think, finally accepts that that Jack is his son, and the relief on his face when Jack starts breathing again, and starts becoming conscious again. The relief on his face, and you're like, he's a father now. He's got the father mentality. He's got the relief. He is accepted and embraced that Jack is his son, and they didn't need any exposition. They didn't need any words. Just music and facial expressions. Perfect.
Yeah.
Absolutely perfect.
The one thing I will say about this scene is that it was a tough wank, but I managed.
And that's where the tone gets lowered, ladies and gentlemen. You love us for it.
Destroy the moment. Shatter the moment.
You love us for it, ladies and gentlemen.
I'll love it.
Oh, I love it. We do love a Graeme wank moment.
The best scene ever happens next.
We go back to Worf and Raffi.
I'm tingling at what happened.
And this is Graeme messaged me when he watched this, and he basically said exactly what I said. And he was like, the scene, and I went, did you squeal too? And he was like, I squealed.
I really did.
Because,
I
ladies and
literally,
gentlemen,
I have a WhatsApp conversation between me and a friend who might eclipse both of us in terms of her nerddom for Trek.
oh dear.
Like she's done everything. She's been to like Germany to go to the conventions and stuff. She's got photos with everyone and stuff. Like she's a massive, massive Trekkie. And basically she was like, "Oh, I haven't watched it yet." And I'm like, "Watch it." And she's like, "Oh, but my child is sick, so he's off school." And I'm like, "Put him in the bin.
Forsake your
Watch
children."
It, like, he can watch it as well. Don't just shut up. Have your priorities right, woman. It's just ignore your spawn. Watch Picard. But yeah, so I hope that I've put the suitable amount of pressure on her. But I may have spoiled it because I basically said it made me very happy, which basically her knowing me goes, that means it must be alluding to,
So we see Titus Ricker. And we see he's becoming more and more destabilized. Raffi still
he's becoming more emo.
Influence.
He's going through a bit of a Green Day phase, isn't he?
Yeah, very Billy from Green Day.
Yeah, that's what I was like. I was like, oh
wow,
at least I have eyeliner
yeah.
back in the future.
That's a hell of a homage, Star Trek. Thank you. So Raffi still believes that he's getting withdrawals and stuff like that, and then his voice changes. His voice, because he keeps saying it's Romulans, and she's like, bullshit, and blah, blah, blah. And then his voice changes, and she goes, oh, that's new. And then Worf.
That's not withdrawal.
Worf just comes out and he goes, how long have you been away from the Great Link? Oh my God. That was it. I squealed. I was like, I just lost my shit. I absolutely lost it.
I've literally got goosebumps. But it's this idea of this is exactly what I wanted from Picard. Like, I can die happy now, but this can go the way of the other seasons, technically, where it just goes, oh, after episode 3 it goes shit and they go back in time or something like that. But this is basically the payoff I wanted, where it's basically Picard referencing DS9, and we're getting characters that we haven't had before, like Picard, Riker, involved in events from DS9. Because what they're referring to with the Great Link is they're referring to the Changelings, the Founders, who are the main antagonists for DS9, where they are the Dominion. Mm-hmm. And the Dominion are basically a space confederacy?
They are an empire in the Gabba quadrant.
Yeah, and basically they're ruled by shapeshifters who are basically, they can turn into anything they want, and they're one of the most terrifying enemies there's ever been because they can be anything. As we're seeing, they can be like saboteurs. They can just by having one on your ship, they can cause absolute chaos throughout stuff. And it's always been a bit of a shame because they're never ever referenced again in actual TV Star Trek or movie Star Trek. They're only in DS9. They're not in Voyager at all. They're not in Enterprise. They're not in Discovery, I don't think, or anything. And then to have them going, oh, they're in Picard now. Like, it was, this is amazing because this is the plot line that we want to see more of, because we hear later on in the episode that we just get more plot about it, and it's like a continuation of DS9, and that makes me very happy because that's my favorite Trek.
Let's discuss that. Let's get into it, because obviously
they beat him up, and the reason why he's getting withdrawals and whatnot is because shapeshifters have to revert back to their liquid form every 16 hours, I think it is. I think it's every 16 hours, like Odo says, where he has to go back to his bucket. Even though there's like 26 hours in a day in Star Trek? I don't know.
Ooh, well.
Yeah, DS9, they kind of play around with basically like, oh, there's 25. No, there's 26 in this episode. And have random meetings at 4 a.m. in the morning. And you're just like, what the hell is this? But it's the idea of, so it's not withdrawal. It's actually that he's been in physical form for far too long, and he has to revert back to it, which is obviously why he can't just get out of the cuffs. It's why he can't just sort of but I guess also it's probably the fact of he wasn't like changing in front of them because he didn't want to give the game away, which is why he was allowing himself to get tortured, I guess.
But when he destabilizes in Worf's hands, I just lost my shit.
Yeah,
I lost my shit because I was like, oh damn, oh my God, it's a changeling. They kill him because he's sliming away on the deck.
Yeah, what are you going to do? Like, he'll just get through the grating there. This is the thing. The Dominion were such a terrifying enemy because, like, they are pretty much unstoppable. The only way they get Well, you'll need to watch DS9 to work out to see how they actually
Absolutely
get
watch
stopped in the
DS9,
end, and it
guys.
works really well. But yeah, but it's also a bit weird that the only thing that can kill changelings seems to be like guns. Like it seems to be phasers or disruptors kind of thing. Because obviously, like you can't
Vaporizing
cut
them.
them.
Yeah.
But yeah, like because
Yeah.
we see Mirror World Odo explode in DS9,
Yeah.
so guns work very well against them.
But we get great exposition from Worf after this, and the reference to Odo.
Yeah.
That touched me so much because obviously we'll never see Rene Auberjonois anymore as Odo. May he rest in
Because he has
peace.
passed on. R.I.P. Rene Auberjonois.
But Worf basically says that he received a tip from Odo, who is in the Great Link, that a faction of the founders, who are obviously not happy, because let's be honest, in DS9, it wasn't a mutual surrender. They didn't have a choice
Yeah.
because there was a biological weapon and we had the cure.
Yeah, like it was the idea of because the thing about the founders, the thing about the changelings is that they're entirely self-serving. Like they don't care about anything except for each other. They only care about their own race. Like I remember the female changeling who is kind of the main villain of DS9 in a weird way. I don't know. I don't think she is, but she's posed that way in bits because obviously Gulda Cut exists. But like well, I think he's the main antagonist. But yeah, but basically she just goes like, we would give up, we would destroy the entire Alpha Quadrant for the sake of Odo, just to get Odo back. Like that's how little they care about anything except for their own interests. And it's kind of great that they kind of reference that here, where they're just going this, because yeah, it does seem a bit weird that at the end of DS9 they do kind of go like, okay, cool, yeah, we surrender. It's so it's nice knowing that there is a faction of them that's like, no, not that easy.
It's and the fact that this portal weapon theft was merely a ruse for something even more terrifying, which they have stole from Daystrom. And it's like, oh, what could be more terrifying?
I'll be disappointed if this is what they do with it, but my mind immediately went to Law.
Oh,
because we know Law's going to be in the
Law's
show
coming
later
back.
on.
Yeah.
But I don't know, because weren't they talking about how they didn't have a copy of Data or anything in season 1? So maybe he isn't at Daystrom or something.
I found this a bit odd because going back to Nemesis, Data downloaded everything, his memories essentially, into B4 in that. And at the end of Nemesis, obviously, you see B4 starting to process and remember stuff that Data had done in his life up until that point. And then obviously in first season to Picard, B4 is disassembled in the Daystrom Institute because the ban on artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
I'm like, right, okay. It'd be interesting to see how Law fits into this and how Moriarty fits into this. I'm very excited to how all this is going to link in.
I don't think we should get our hopes up with Moriarty, because I'm pretty sure Moriarty is going to be a one-shot. Like I said last week, I think it's going to be that they go back to the Enterprise for some reason. Like they go back to the Enterprise D for whatever reason. And while they're there, they're like, oh, let's turn on the holosuites. Oh, God. I think it's going to be a Monster of the Week thing with Moriarty. It would be hilarious. It would be amazing if they could somehow work him into the wider plot. But I have a feeling that he's a Monster of the Week cameo. And I think the same maybe with Law, but it would be great if this is referring to Law and that he is actually a bigger part of it rather than a fan cameo.
There are a few things they'll need to explain with Law, absolutely, for sure. The hair, for one thing. Because why has an android got grey hair? We don't know. Yeah, hopefully,
but no, didn't it? Actually, no. We had an episode of TNG where Data gave himself a white stripe, didn't they? So he's probably just wanting to look a bit more distinguished.
Yeah. So obviously we get the changeling reveal. We then go back to the Titan where Riker and Picard.
Changelings, fucking Dominion mentions. Oh, I'm
Riker
getting moist.
Picard.
I'm getting moist goodwill. The mention of the Dominion.
Riker and Picard argue again, where Picard is basically saying, well, we can't run. We need to stand and fight. And this is at the point where Riker finally loses his shit. And he just basically, he says, we are running my ship. I'm the captain. Sit down.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, Captain Riker has now come into form. We then go back to Raffi and Worf, with the exposition about the Dominion, the little background and stuff, and they join forces and they are heading to the Daystrom Institute. As that's playing, we've got the changeling on board the Titan, shifty yellow shirt dude, planning a bomb in engineering, which
knocks out warp drive, basically. It totally incapacitates them, doesn't it?
Yes, because obviously, slightly before it does, Riker just goes, right, okay, we'll play it your way, Picard. We'll stand and fight. The fire torpedoes. Picard, not realizing this dude's got a portal gun.
Yeah.
The torpedoes are fired. They use a portal and redirect the torpedoes to the Titan.
It's
knocks them. It's brilliant.
No, I just love the idea of no portals are the most ludicrous thing in the entire world.
Yeah, but it's like they didn't factor. They knew she had that weapon, but Picard didn't factor that in. And this ties
that's exactly it. And it's this idea of I think it could have been done better, but we're kind of seeing Picard for the first time ever being irrational because of emotions, where it's the idea of he's saying, oh, we should do this, we should fight, we should, and he's doing it purely because all he can think about is protecting his son and basically protecting his son. So it's weird, and maybe it could have been led up to better, but I can kind of understand him being like this now. But they get totally fucked over by them. So basically they get, there's a massive explosion in engineering, knocking the warp drive out, so they can't actually escape, and this literally cripples them, these attacks. And then they end up falling into a gravity well. Apparently.
Yeah, they are getting dragged closer to the gravity well. Riker's face.
Oh, he's not happy. Oh, he's not happy, is he? He's proper angry. Yeah.
There's resignation, and he turns and he says, basically, leave the bridge. You've killed us all. In
the Scottish dub of this, he just says, "Get to fuck."
Yeah, get to fuck. I didn't like him saying this.
Yeah.
I think it was very un-Riker and very uncaptainy to say that in front of your crew, because you've essentially resigned to your own fate. And I'm having trouble with it.
I think I didn't like it, but I think if they put it in the idea of he was telling Picard to leave to go be with his son or get out of the situation that he's being over emotional about, that would have been better. But this plays out like he's just going, "You've angered me, get the fuck out, you crappy old man," kind of thing. And that's kind of how it comes across. Whereas I think the actual emotion behind it is the idea of all you're thinking about is your son, you're no use here, kind of thing. But it doesn't come across that way.
It was very un-Riker, I think, and I don't know if it was emotionally charged, if it was anger, I don't know, but that's out of all the episodes, that is the one thing I disagreed with right at the end. It's a great cliffhanger to leave it because we have that beautiful shot of it just literally barreling towards some asteroids, I think it is, and then it just fades to black. But to say you have killed us all, I don't know. I don't know. I have a real issue with it because it didn't feel right for that.
No, it didn't. Let's just wait for the next episode if we can. I physically can't wait for the next episode. I'm too excited. But I think it was weird, but I think it was a great way to end the episode. So so we've talked about the episode. We're done with the episode?
We are done with the episode.
That took nearly 2 hours. Christ. No, it's taken more than 2 hours. No, it hasn't. I can't count.
An
It's
hour and
taken
a
an hour and a
half.
half. I don't know how time works.
It was that good.
but no, yeah, that was. I absolutely love that. I'm trying to work out what's going to happen next. I think that the Shrike's going to save them. I think the Shrike's like, hey, we kind of need you alive, because it would be a bit weird on a kind of Doctor Who-esque kind of level if they just went, hey, let's just protect you for ages and toy around with you and not actually kill you when we could have. Oh, but then we'll just kill you.
Yeah.
I think the Shrike hopefully didn't mean to do that, and they'll like track to beam them out or portal them out of it, kind of thing. I think they just did it for a cliffhanger, but maybe, I don't know.
Yeah.
What is a gravity well? Like, is a gravity well where you will get crushed?
That's a black hole. A gravity well is essentially something with a large amount of mass that has a very large gravitational pull that you get essentially pulled into.
But what will happen to it? Is it just that you can't get out afterwards? Or
it'll either hit something or it'll get crushed under the immense pressure.
Right. Okay. So it's a crushy deathy rather than
it's a crushy deathy. Yeah. But obviously we see some asteroids and we think, oh god, they're barreling towards these asteroids as well. They're disabled. What's going to happen? It's an obvious cliffhanger. We know they are going to be all right because
what if they all just die though?
Trailers ruin everything. Yeah, because we've still got LaForge, we've still got Troy and everything like that.
Yeah.
But overall, I think this has broke the curse of Picard, where the first one or two episodes are brilliant. The third one's like, this was brilliant.
Yeah.
I want to see next week Dominion. I want to see Geordie LaForge. I want to see more Vedic.
Yeah,
I
want to see more Vedic. Like I'm just happy with whatever they do. Like, do you ever get it where when something ticks all the boxes that you kind of set out, you're like, cool, roll with it. Like you've made me happy. Just anything else is a bonus. And we've got DS9 references. We've brought DS9 into modern Trek, which makes me incredibly happy with the Dominion. And obviously there might be stuff later on. I don't know, like. Because it's a perfect cameo for something like Garak or I don't know, anyone really.
My dear Doctor.
Imagine if they put Garak in. Imagine if they get fucking like Andrew Robinson back, and he's just like.
I don't know how many times I can squeal without my neighbours worrying. But we will see.
Like, well, at least he's getting some at last.
Yeah, we will see as the weeks progress. But no, that's it for this review.
Yeah. Sammy's just saying, is Will Wheaton in it? And we're like, Will Wheaton got a cameo at the end of season 2.
He did.
And he might be back in this one. We don't know.
We don't know. We
don't know, but they did go, he's still around. We could use him. Fingers crossed.
He was in season 2, Sammy. We did see bearded Will Wheaton because... Well, he will never shave for Wesley Crusher. But no, so that was it for this week's review of Star Trek Picard. I absolutely loved it. Yet again, it has been an absolute pleasure talking to you about Star Trek. I love this time of the week where we can just talk about all things Star Trek. It's beautiful, Graeme. However, do you have stuff to promote?
I have loads of stuff to promote. I'm literally living through hell at the minute because it is Newcastle Drag Idol, and I am the main correspondent for it. So as my drag persona, the Velvet Snatch, I've been there every week filming it and interviewing the contestants. It happens at Switch Bar from about 9:30 on Sundays. Yes, that's a great time to have a competition. But that's always been the way of it.
It's after Songs of Praise. We're fine.
That's right. It's like now we go to real church, the Church of Drag, and then and it's a wonderful competition. You should definitely check it out. And if you don't want to check it out and you just want the Too Long Didn't Read, that's what my show is. Where my week is hell because basically I go to Drag Idol on Sunday night. I'm there until about 1:30 in the morning. In drag, and then I have to get home, de-drag, go to bed, get up for work the next day. After work, I have to write a five-page A4 script, then go to bed, then go to work on Tuesday, and then get into drag afterwards, and then film all of me reading the script in front of the camera and whatnot. And then I'm off on Wednesdays, so I have to edit an entire episode. And this episode that we just put out, episode 2, took 16 hours to edit. I was up at 9 a.m. on Wednesday. I went to bed at about 12 or 1 with it rendering. And it went out last night. People are very much enjoying it, which is great. And then we had the Girl podcast that I'm part of, which if you go to Girl Global, that's GURL global.com. That's where you'll find all of that and whatnot. And who did we have on yesterday? We had Coppertop, who's a wonderful drag queen from down south, who was on RuPaul's Drag Race season 4. And that'll be coming out. It'll be coming out beginning of April probably, because I don't have any time to edit it right now. So yeah, so it's been wonderful. So this, after a very, very tiring week of constant work, having my lunch break today, watching Picard, having like little schoolgirl giggles at it all, and then obviously doing this has been wonderful. And then
it's a great catharsis.
I get tomorrow off. Way.
It is a great catharsis. I want to thank obviously Paul for giving us the opportunity to do this on Nerdy Up North. It's absolutely.
I don't know. I'm not going to thank Paul. Paul's a horrible bastard. He is. I have seen Paul like twist the heads off kittens like frequently. Just. I'm trying to think of nasty things to say about Paul, and there's nothing. So I'm just going to make some stuff up. Okay, he's. I saw him punch a baby once. So,
but no, I do want to thank. I want to thank Paul for giving us the opportunity to do this on Nerdy Up North. I wouldn't a year and a half ago, I would have never ever imagined doing anything like this. And now I'm wearing a Starfleet uniform in front of loads of people talking about Star Trek, and I absolutely love it. I absolutely love it. So
I think that's it. We need to embrace nerd culture. It's the wonderful thing of like, I mean, what is it? We all met up the other weekend, didn't we? All met up. Was it Saturday? Was it last Saturday?
Yes,
sorry, like I say, week's been a bit of a blur. But we all met up last Saturday, and it was wonderful going around all the geek stores in Newcastle, in Sunderland, because we've got like Be More Geek, and then we've got the wonderful one in the green,
yes,
Jackie White's Market,
Jackie White's Market.
And just all this wonderful nostalgia, and there's something great about embracing it. And the same with Trek. Like, it's the fact of like, remember in the past where people would be scared to say they're a Trekkie, and now it's just like, yeah, it's a thing I like. You like the fucking Vampire Diaries, shut up. It's like, it's this idea of like, we can embrace it and we can come together as a community and just enjoy the stuff we enjoy,
Yes, so guys, that was episode 3 of Star Trek and Nerdy Up North with myself and Graeme. Be sure to check out Nerdy Up North on YouTube, because we have a podcast every Sunday. We have a podcast this Sunday at 7:30 p.m, which I believe they are talking about the Batman. The Batman. We also have Nerdy Up North. I cannot talk tonight. We have a Nerdy Up North Twitch channel, which loads of us play games. Me, Paul, Grant, Jake. We play everything.
Is that going on now? Is that happening now? Usually it happens on a Friday, doesn't it?
No, I do it every Tuesday at 6:30 p.m. And Jake, Grant, Paul, they will play whatever they want, whenever they want, because they are
okay, there we go. So we're not.
They do not have a schedule. We also have a Patreon. If you want to subscribe to our Patreon channel, where we have exclusive content, where we have the wonderful Sammy talking about Game of Thrones, and I believe she will also be talking about Lord of the Rings as well going forward. So it's
Lotra, if you pronounce it wrongly.
We are also on Facebook. The Nerdy Up North community is on Facebook. We are at 7,100 members of the community.
That's too many. We need a cull. We need them to fight it out with the Trek fight music we're playing.
It's the only acceptable.
There can be only one. We just get all them 7,000 of them into an arena, battling it out, and they're sort of smacking each over the head with stuff. That'd be amazing.
We can just bet Quatloos on who wins. It's going to be brilliant.
It'd be amazing, yeah.
So yeah, guys, so check out everything we offer. We have got something for everyone. We are a wonderful group of people. I again want to thank Graeme for joining me tonight. And I want to thank everyone who has watched along live, everyone in the chat. I love you absolutely all. And yes, Sammy,
everyone
TikTok,
in the chat, thank you so much. Thank you so much for watching.
As well.
Like, I've been keeping an eye on it, and it's literally like it's been around like a consistent amount of people watching. And I'm like, whoa, okay, well, at least we're not talking shit. Or at least like or at least they're kind enough to leave it on in the background. They put it on, they're like, they're talking shit, I'm gonna make a cup of tea. You know, I'm fine with that. That's consistent viewership.
Sammy runs Nerdy Up North on TikTok as well, so please go check that out.
I'm too old for TikTok. I don't know
the tick and the talk. I don't do the tick.
I don't do the ticky talkies. No,
the ticky talkie, but Sammy does it really well. So if you're on the tick and the talk, give us a follow on there, will you guys? I'm going to be spending the remainder of my life on Twitter harassing Star Trek alumni whilst harassing other people I know who worked on Star Trek to come on the show. Next week, we do have a guest on, Graeme.
Oh,
we
is
have
it
a
Jesus?
Guest. It could be Jesus. It is the wonderful Joe from Spectrum Sanctorum YouTube channel, who cover a lot of different nerdy stuff, much like Nerdy Up North. And they are also doing a few Star Trek things. They love to come on. So shout out to Joe if you are listening. Hello, Joe. I will see you next week.
That was creepy as all fuck. We'll see you next week. I hope you're next week. Will you be my friend?
Will you be my friend, Joe? But no, I'm really excited for that, to get to talk more Trek with more people. It's so exciting. So that's next week, guys. So thank you very much for tuning in tonight. And we will see you next week. Bye-bye.
Yeah. Have fun. Good day. Watch DS9.